Douchey calls him sweaty balls. This is Scotch Sporting.
Okay, so we have two deep dives that happened this week. So we'll start with baseball. So Dave and I were talking yesterday, and he said, you guys should talk about, because it's their last year of eligibility, the steroids era guys, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens. And I was like, oh, when is the Hall of Fame announcement? Because that's a great topic.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's literally in less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the aftermath of when it happened. So there was one guy got into the Hall of Fame here, David Ortiz. Let's give him props.
Yep.
Although he was also around in the steroid era, we'll leave that one.
But he was still cranking them.
Yeah.
After
he
the
had a
steroid.
down year after he got
right, but he was
discovered,
still
and
cranking
then came
them.
back.
Yeah, he was still cranking them. He deserves it. He 100% deserves it.
And honestly, the video of Pedro Martinez with him in the background, was adorable.
That's his boy.
It's his boy. It's so cute. Dave and I were at Fenway at what happened to be Pedro Martinez night.
Oh, okay.
And they had David Ortiz come out and give him his award, and like their romance is just so adorable. So pause for David Ortiz making it to the Hall of Fame. So this is the last year of eligibility for Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling,
Sammy Sosa.
He was never in that like echelon to really get in.
Really, I don't know. Maybe I misremember things.
I mean, he had that really good like baseball thing with McGuire, but outside of that, I mean, he didn't really do much, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and in the conversation of like, should they be in the Hall of Fame? Should they not? It was Sammy Sosa was always like, oh yeah, that guy.
Okay.
It was always about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens.
Yeah.
And if history taught us anything, Mark McGuire didn't make it. He was dropped off the ballot. Rafael Palmeiro was off the ballot. Like there were a couple of guys that should have been in the conversation that are not in the Hall of Fame.
A-Rod.
I'll get to A-Rod. So Barry Bonds, pause on A-Rod. It was A-Rod's first year of eligibility. There was a question. People were pretty sure he wouldn't get in, but it was what percentage of the vote would he get?
Yeah.
So you need 75, 70 or 75?
75.
A-Rod was 40 something. So he stays on it. He doesn't drop off. He stays on it. But he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is like, oh, okay, this is your punishment.
Yeah.
So Barry Bonds is the home run leader of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Clemens is arguably the greatest pitcher.
He's one of the most Cy Youngs.
Yeah.
Now neither of them are going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake. I think you acknowledge. I thought what was going to happen is that they'd be like, all right, fine, let him in. It's their last year of eligibility. This was the punishment.
They've learned their lesson.
Well, not that they learned their lesson, but like you still have to celebrate the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a blemish on history, but you can't ignore what they've done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you just can't ignore it. But
I mean, when I told you yesterday why you were like, I wasn't surprised at results.
Yeah.
Only because no, I totally agree with you. They should be in, but I wasn't surprised at result because these baseball writers, they're finicky.
They're idiots.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it has something to do with how they handled their end of it.
Do you think?
Not only that, but they weren't media friendly at all either. If they were super media friendly,
exactly. Like
they would get a sweetheart deal.
They denied it so much.
And how many shitty outbreaks did Bonds have with the media? Right.
Yeah.
And that plays that because the media has their votes. I don't know why the media has the vote on that.
Is it the same?
It's
for
the writers
every
for everybody. Yep.
Even
no.
Football's not, right?
Baseball's the only one where the writers are.
Okay.
So it's weird that way because like there's relationships that are there, and if somebody doesn't like somebody or if they don't like how they did something, it's stupid,
like
right? Like
it's boys club rules.
You know what? You want to put a little asterisk beside their little bust in the Hall of Fame, then put an asterisk. Say, hey, he leads.
Absolutely.
He has the most home runs all time. He might have used some steroids here or there. You want to put that at the bottom, fine. But the dude belongs in the Hall of Fame. Clemens belongs in the Hall of Fame.
That's like with Pete Rose.
Yeah.
What he did was, after his career was done.
Well,
and now he's banned for life.
Yeah, and that's so. What bugs me about it is, it's not like baseball has been clean.
Right.
No, there's fucking racists in there. There's people who've cheated before they found out the rules who are in the Hall of Fame.
They're the only ones who got caught doing it.
Exactly.
And even back in the 70s and 80s when they were taking amphetamines to, get better performance.
So the name that's interesting, and I do want to get back to another point, but the name that's interesting also is Curt Schilling.
Because fuck him.
He wasn't nailed for PPEs, and I don't know if he was ever indicated for doing them.
Right.
But he just is a piece of shit.
Yeah, he's just a giant douchebag.
But he isn't a rapist.
Nope.
He didn't hurt anybody. He didn't assault anybody. He's just an asshole. I'm sorry, you can hear Ron screaming in the background.
He knows mom's podcasting.
He also thinks Curt Schilling.
I was going to say, he agrees with the Curt Schilling description.
Yep.
Curt Schilling makes babies cry. You hear that?
There you go. Curt Schilling, fuck you. You don't get in the hall.
So he's an awful person, but he hasn't done anything awful, if that makes sense. So he's an interesting case.
Well, I think last year he said, just take my name off the ballot because he knew he was fucked.
Right.
And so I just wanted to read a quote from an article about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. Okay, so please bear with me. In 2014, the Baseball Writers Hall of Fame changed its rules for induction. Previously, the Baseball Writers ballot receiving at least 5% of the vote could hang around in the ballot for 15 years, assuming they never dipped below 5%. After the decision to change the rule in 2014, however, players were now allowed to stay on the ballot for a maximum of 10 years. 3 players were grandfathered into that rule, Don Mattingly, Alan Trammell, and Smith. Everyone else on the ballot was now subject to the new rule, including Bonds and Clemens, who had already been on the ballot for 2 cycles.
Wow.
So the rules were changed midstream. The rule changes supposedly weren't directly due to any specific players, but it wasn't too difficult to see what was happening. It became more clear in 2017 when late Hall of Famer and former Sunday Night Baseball broadcaster Joe Morgan, with an impassioned plea, said, "Let's avoid putting in steroid users." He didn't speak for all Hall of Famers, but he sure wasn't going rogue. Morgan multiple times mentioned other Hall of Famers. So for whatever reason, the line was drawn during the so-called PED era. So it's quite a leap of hypocrisy as we go back to Bud Galvin, Hall of Famer, by the way, in the 1880s, pumping monkey testosterone into his body.
Damn.
Or we discuss the rampant use of amphetamines in Morgan's era. No time period is clean. None.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting one. And it is here that I will remind everyone that Bug Selig was put into the Hall of Fame by a Hall-appointed veteran committee. Selig was the commissioner during this so-called PED era, when it exploded in Major League Baseball. He contradicted himself in public on different occasions, once claiming he didn't even know about so-called steroids in 98-99 during the great home run chase of McGwire and Sosa. But also testifying in front of Congress that he was way ahead of the game, knowing it was a problem in 1994. So Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
He was the commissioner during this time. He said during a testimony in front of Congress, he knew about it back in 1984, but obviously didn't say anything because who wants to learn the terrifying truth and who wants to see me socks and dingers?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Socks and dingers.
Let's not forget, Selig only got in. He didn't get in the usual route. He got in through the Veterans Committee, which is how Clemens and Bonds can still make it.
Right. So they can still get in. If there's justice in this world.
Is a huge Ken Griffey Jr. fan. Ken Griffey Jr. was not a unanimous vote.
Right.
To the Hall of Fame. There was like one guy that's
literally it was just one guy.
And his reasoning was Babe Ruth wasn't unanimous. And Babe Ruth was the greatest baseball player of all time. So no one should be unanimous.
Did he vote against Jeter? Because I believe he got in unanimously. Fucking hypocrite.
So those are the baseball writers. So how we all grew up in this era. Except maybe Chris.
Yeah, I saw the monkey testosterone guy.
Yeah, Chris was around for monkey testosterone. How do we feel as baseball fans who grew up in this era about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, and should they be in the Hall of Fame? Just as people who grew up.
Like I said, they 100% they should be in. 100%. And if you want to put a little asterisk, do it.
Tyler?
I heard on a radio show this morning that they talked about the mission statement of the Baseball Hall of Fame is to recognize history. Nothing about, off-field shenanigans, on-field politics, whatever. Just recognizing history.
There you go.
These guys are part of history.
Tyler?
And that's how it should be. You should recognize what they did on the field for the sport of baseball, nothing else. And they can't, but they should be in.
And that was that era.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Guys. That was that era. It wasn't wrong then. That was everyone did it.
And you know what? Probably like in 5-10 years, they're gonna start talking about the sticky ball era with all these pitches.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What if they change the bat to be a different wood and that totally changes the game? It's like, I don't know, these guys were the pine bat days. It's like, no, that was the 90s. They did drugs.
They did. We did drugs in the 90s, okay?
Well, and to throw it on a different sport for a moment, to go to the NFL and say all the records that are now being broken are with an 18-week season.
Yeah, like
not a 17-week season.
They're talking about, this guy threw so many yards. It's like he had an extra fucking game.
Full extra game. You have a whole extra game. But if the other guys had an extra game, wouldn't they be able to do that? The same thing?
I said to those people? I said to those people, no one complained when they changed it from a 14-game schedule to 16.
I'm complaining.
2 extra games.
I would have.
Yeah, I'm complaining.